So, a lot of high achieving women have learned how to succeed, but they're still operating out of survival mode. Everything looks good on the outside, but they are so tumultuous on the inside. Join me in welcoming Dr. Dré Cleveland. She is your personal power coach, the creator of Heal Love Manifest and the Black Girls Manifest movement. And she is going to talk with us all about self love and success and how to live from a more embodied place. So, Dr. Drea, tell everybody who you are, what you do, who you help, and just a little bit about your story.
Oh, well, yeah. So first of all, yay, I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank
For
you for
one
saying
of our,
yes.
yes, one of our many conversations. We can get really into it, and I appreciate that
For
about
sure,
you.
for sure.
So thank you for having me. And so I'm Dr. Dré Cleveland, your personal power coach, and I take Black women on a journey through healing, self-love, and self-mastery so that we can create the lives that we want to live from a place of clarity, intention, and desire. So,
I love that. I love that. And that's why she's here, you guys, because the work that we do intersects. Because if you don't have that clarity, if you're not being intentional, if you're not operating in your personal power, like, yeah, we're about to have a really good conversation. And I know that we can talk all day, so I'm not going to hold you all day, but let's go ahead and get into it. So, um, looking at your story and some of the things that you shared with me when we were preparing for this interview, you talked about a lot about embodied self mastery. And that's one of the core pillars of my own framework. And,
mm,
self mastery is something that's important. So, talk to us about self mastery from your perspective and what that actually looks like in practice.
yeah, well, it really, to sum it up, because like you said, we could talk about this forever. And I could give you the long version, but the short version of that is being able to daily, minutely even, um, choose, right? And what I mean by that is that, there are things that we all struggle with, right? Every single
For
body
sure.
on the planet, right? And in some form of fashion, right? None of us are immune to it. And there are ways that we need to become or practice
Mhm.
into being about who this woman is going to be that will be able to hold whatever the next level is for us,
Right.
right? So if we're going to get out of that, struggle bus moment, right?
For sure.
There are ways that we have been being that have been contributing to those things, right? So a lot of it
Absolutely.
also is about being responsible, and that's one of the power principles that we have too, is witnessing yourself as a responsible person, meaning, there are no victims here, right?
Hmm.
And again, that could be a longer subject because there's some,
For
touchy
sure.
subjects that, people might need some clarification on what I mean by that, right? And there are no victims here, meaning, we always take the case that there's some way that I am being in this moment that helps contribute to the grand scheme of how,
Hmm.
the universe brings situations and circumstances to my life and how I interact with them. And then I get to decide, well, maybe I didn't do this purposely, to be fair,
Hmm.
right? But now that I'm aware of how I may have contributed, how do I need to be being going forward to now activate whatever this new thing is that I'm creating, because I don't want that, right? And then in those moments, we're consistently choosing
For
to
sure.
be practicing being that person, right? So it's a consistent choosing because our brains are, wired.
Yeah. And they can trick you.
Yeah, they can trick you, right? And more so, like they're just being themselves, right? Like it is a program, like literally
Yeah.
the way that you would program a computer. Our brains are that way.
Right.
So if we have practiced being a certain way for the majority of our lives, or even a little bit of our lives, enough of it for it
Hmm.
to have become kind of seated in our synapses, so to speak,
For sure.
right? Then essentially our brain just being what it's been meant to be, right? That's what it's been being, right? It does feel like a trick, right? Because we know we want something else, right? But the
Yeah,
moment we acknowledge my brain is just doing what that's what it does. It does this,
right.
right? That
Default
we
setting.
right, the default setting. But what that does is it allows us to have communication with it in a different way, not in a like, stop being like this. Why are
Right.
you like, or beating yourself up about it? It's like, I noticed that program running and I can choose, right? I'm over here
I love
choosing,
that.
even though I
For
hear
sure.
that.
For sure. And I like that you kept bringing up themes of being, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in acting and
Hmm.
not really, like you said, that's why it's important to work on embodiment, because that's something that you can't fake, you know.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that accountability piece and knowing how did I contribute to this. I also like the theme of choosing.
Yeah.
Like one of my major themes few years back was choose you, or
Hmm.
choosing yourself, choosing your best life. And I honestly believe that we actively choose whether we know it or not, you
Hmm.
know, because that's how we interact with the world
Yeah.
around us, you know.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes those choices that we make aren't necessarily intentional choices. It's just the default that we've been
Mhm.
living like this. This is what we're choosing because this is what we're used to choosing. But that you can make a choice to do something different, that you can make a different choice. I was reading something the other day talking about how we are pretty much the only beings who can choose our thoughts. Like we don't just have to accept the things, like you said, you can recognize, hey, this thought doesn't jive with where I want to go, who I want to be, that next level. You know what I'm saying? So let me
Mhm.
change this thought. Let me adjust it. You know, so I love that you brought that up. Let's talk about like how that came out in some of your own experiences, because I love having people tell their own stories, because we can talk about the clients that we work with all day long, but I think people really tend to connect when we can relate them to how we went through that personally. And I know that's usually why a lot of us got into the work that we do, because it's a journey that we've traveled ourselves and we're like, okay, let me show other people how to get through this journey as well. So going through
Yep.
your story, I know you didn't have like confidence issues or anything, because in terms of achievement, you know, you sound like you grew up a lot like me, where it was like people expected you to get the A's, you got the
Mhm.
A's, you know what I'm saying? But there were other um moments where that confidence showed up in a different way, or some situations that you know, kind of tested that for you. Can you speak
Yeah.
to a little bit of that and how you use that personal power to get through those situations and remind yourself of who you are, again embodying that self-mastery?
Yeah. I mean, well, shoot, girl, we could. Which one do you want? But the one that I actually want to share right now, because I feel like it's really relevant to what we were just talking about, is my shyness. And the
Mm,
reason why I say that is because, well, I 100% was always like, I was always a high achiever. It just is.
mm,
I've been being in my life, but that didn't mean I like talking to people. So
right.
imagine, how did I get here? Right? How did I get here with the career that I have, coming on, platforms like this, having conversations, being in front of people, on stages, etc. A person who used to hyperventilate, quite literally hyperventilate if somebody just asked me my name. Right. Then I had nerve to be the valedictorian, speaking of high achieving. And you
And you
have
had
to
to give a speech. Yep, you had to give a
yes,
speech.
oh my God. Right. And that was super challenging to me. I remember I sweating in my hands, shaking like this, just remembering that. But I say that to say that I did still know, like to your point, that there was a calling for me to be doing work like this. I didn't know what it looked like. And back then, because it's like 20 years ago. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But right, but back then this was a very new thing. Coaching and doing it in this way was super new, right?
Hmm.
But I did know that I was put here to be a teacher, and I knew I was put here to essentially be a teacher of life. Even when I was a school teacher, I realized I didn't actually even want to teach the subjects. I got my high from teaching the children how to be so that they could be successful and then watch them
For
get the
sure.
results, right? Like that was more important to me, right? And so I knew that was part of what I was supposed to be doing, but you have to talk to people to do that is the point, right? And
Right. Right.
cool, they're kids, right? Like I didn't have the same thing with kids, but adults, oh, forget about it, right?
Yeah.
So, there was a dissonance between the person who I had to be being that you're seeing right now and the person who I was back then. A very big gap, right?
Hmm.
So I had to really be paying attention to like, well, who is that woman over there? I would watch people like Lisa Nichols, Iyanla Van Zandt, who,
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
protege.
I
She used
love
to not do it,
her.
but she,
Yes.
yeah, right. Like I will watch them, and I'm looking, I'm like, well, what is it that they're doing? How do I think that they think? Right. How am I watching them be, you know,
Mhm.
and figure out like how to kind of track that blueprint onto who I'm being.
Mhm.
Did not take 5 days. No, no, no.
Right.
Right. It takes time. And that's one thing that I want people to understand. Embodiment. And that's what I mean by it's a daily choosing. Right.
For sure.
Embodiment takes time. It's not a thing that, it's not a fast action pill. Like when people are like, oh, I can teach you how to do this in 5 days or less. Yeah, I can teach you how in 5 days or less,
Yeah.
but that's not how it's going to work in your real life. Right.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
are going to choose to start adding those elements, those traits, those ways of thinking and ways of being into who you are every moment. In those moments where I want to be like, I don't want to go on no Nashama show. I don't talk to people. Then I have
She's
to
like,
hear,
I gotta talk.
right, I don't want to do that. Right. To this day, I'm better at it now, but it's still something that I'm like, I don't want to do that. Right. Or I'll notice it'll stop me.
Ma'am, you
Like,
have a podcast. Like,
but see what this is my point, and I'm choosing. I'm
right.
choosing to do that, right? It is a active choice because if you left it up to ma'am is that lady in my brain. Her name is ma'am. And if I left it up to her, I would just be in my bed looking at TV because I don't have to talk to people to do that, right? And so, right, it's a really good example of how embodiment works, right? I've
For
been
sure.
practicing it for years. I'm way better at it now. Like I wouldn't, to be fair, second guess coming on your show, or anybody's show or being on TV or anything like that, right? Those
Yeah.
things are kind of natural to me now, right?
Yeah.
But ma'am's still in there going, no. Or when I want to create something, she'll be in there going, you don't want to do that. You know how much that's going to take out of you. You know how much,
Right.
she will still do it because everybody is going to always have that thing. Right. And I can hear her and go, I'm choosing to do this because this is where I'm supposed to be being. This is the track I'm supposed to be on. Right. And the same
For
thing in
sure.
relationships for me, but that's a whole nother, you know, have a different conversation about.
So, going back to allowing the work to help you show up the way that you know that you're supposed to show up and move into that next level. You talk about people operating in survival mode and the different habits and things that they need to do because we know that your habits eventually become who you are because those habits come out of changing your beliefs and mindset in the first place, right? So, with all of that being said, when you recognize somebody operating out of survival mode and you know it's impacting the way that they make decisions, the way that they show up, um, the way that it impacts the people around them, the people that they lead, especially when we're working with leaders. What do you say to that, as far as some practical tools, as far as stepping up in their decision making and getting out of survival mode
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah. Well, two things, right? First thing being, how do I be safe? Right? Because survival mode comes from the nervous system, not feeling safe. Like I'm
Mhm.
always reacting because I have to make it through the day. I have to,
Right.
and on top of that, especially as Black women, I have all these people, places, and things to take care of that I'm trying to juggle. Like, I'm a circus act, right? And I'm
Yeah.
not taking time to listen to what my nervous system is telling me that it needs, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing, like figuring out what safety looks like. And honestly, it's literally as simple, not easy all the time, but simple as asking that person in your
Mhm.
head, right? Everybody name your alter ego. That's what that's called. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, do you suggest people give a name?
Yes, right. And reason being, because that helps you separate you from her,
Yes,
right? So
absolutely.
100% of the time when I'm talking to people very married to that person, right? Which is what will keep you in that survival mode, because I'm married to the thought process that
Hmm.
has, right? And she's telling me this is how it is. This is how it has to be. This is what I have to go through. And I'm married to it. So here's real me over here telling me, no, there's got to be a better way. And that's what I'm feeling, which is why I feel the dissonance.
Right.
But ma'am is over here going, no, this is what we have to do. And also, yeah, it's supposed to be like this. And also
Right.
it is, like she's over there doing that. But
Right.
we're usually very married to her. And it comes out like, why am I like this? Why am I feeling like this? Why is this happening to me? Right? All of the things. Right. But if we separate them, right, meaning me, Drea, over here, right?
Hmm.
Ma'am is right here. We're still in the same body, but we are two different people. Right.
Right.
It makes me hear her differently. So I hear her saying that and I go, yeah, I hear you. I even know how you got there, why you feel that way. And I'm choosing. Right. That's it. Like I said, it's not always easy, but it is that simple. Right. And
Yeah.
you can ask her, what does she need to feel safe? She'll tell you. Right. If you ask her in any moment, especially when you feel, those feelings that let you go, oh, bells.
Yeah.
Right. You feel it. And you can ask her in that moment, what do you need right now? Right. And she'll
For
immediately tell
sure.
you. Sometimes she'll say, I need reassurance. Right. I need
Yeah.
space. I need help. Right? Like whatever it
Yeah.
is, she can tell you in that moment. Right? So she's not bad. She's not a bad, you know, entity in your head. She's helpful in a lot of ways, but she can't be in charge. And we're used to let her be in charge. That's the point. Right? So that's the first part. Like, how do I be safe? And then
Right.
once you figure out what that is for you, then you're able to identify like what are the things, because again, one of the things is that she'll tell you, right? If I need peace, or it'll tell you, it kind of hints to the things you need or value,
Hmm.
right? Because your other question was about decision making, right?
Right.
Right. It will point you to what you need or value. Most of us know kind of intrinsically what we need or value, but we're not voicing it. We're not bringing
Right.
it top of mind. We're on autopilot, ma'am. Right. So once our nervous system is more calm, we're able to say, and now let's look at what it is that I truly need and or value, and how I stand on those things, or how I honor and call in those things in my life. Right. And whatever decisions I'm making, because if you're
For
making
sure.
those decisions based on what is authentic to you, you can't be making the wrong decisions. And it
Right.
immediately takes you out of survival mode, because you're not operating from ma'am at that moment, right? You're operating from what's true and authentic to me, right? And so if I start
That's
saying,
good.
you know what, yes, for example, flow and ease. Oh, this is a good example. Let me tell you, right? Because we're talking about high achievers.
Right.
At
Right.
my job, right? Because I'm a mental health coach, right? And I work for a company, so I do this on my own, but I also work for a company where I am still
Hmm.
coaching all day, but in the mental health field, which is great because I can combine both things. But I say that to say there was an opportunity some years back to become a supervisor. My brain, ma'am, thinks I should be the supervisor because I should be in charge. Me, the person who don't want to talk to nobody. But that sounds like achievement. That sounds like next step. That sounds like you should go for it.
Hmm.
Both
Right.
times I applied. I applied twice because they had the opening twice. And both times something was telling me, it's like, that is not what you want to be doing. You want to be coaching. This is what you're here for. Why are you trying to
Hmm.
be? supervisor. I was trying to make all kind of excuses and all the reasons why. This is ma'am talking. Where
Mm-hmm.
me, very clear. Number one, my top values are freedom, flow, and ease.
Mm.
That does not align with being nobody's supervisor at this company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really, really valid point that you brought up because I did a boot camp a couple weeks ago and we talked about, positioning and your leadership and your leadership identity. And what you said really tied into that because you talked about how important it is to divorce that negative voice from who you really are. And I think a lot of times we hold on to that as our identity, and the sooner that you realize, hey, that's not me, that's just a belief that I've held,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to let that go. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then you mentioned, what was the last thing you said? Because that's what made me directly think of, you
Well,
values,
yeah.
values. I talked about um, operating from that place because again our values do inform the things that we are passionate about, the things that we work on. And like you said, it was a lot of people don't do this, and it's so great that you recognize this. I mean, it took you two times applying and not getting it to connect the dots. And I had my own experience with that also, like working for a long-term client as a contractor, and then they offered me a position with benefits. And I was like, "Ooh, I think I'm gonna take it." And then Spirit was like, "But you said you don't want to be tied down because you need time to work on your own stuff." You know what I'm saying? So values is a super important piece. And then the more that you recognize that part about yourself and the things that are important to you,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're setting yourself up for success. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think a lot of times we get disappointed or feel like failures because we're operating or moving towards something that doesn't align with our values in the first place. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you brought that up because that's how you get the momentum. That's where that purpose and productivity and all that comes from. Because if it's not values aligned, you're not driven. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Then that's where you get the hustle and the push through and you know what I mean? So I love that you brought that up because that's very, very key. You mentioned relationships being an area of growth for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you brought that up a few ways. So, how did that experience kind of deepen the way that you approach the way that you work with women?
Well, it has been, because it continues to be, because again, like I said, everybody has their things and there's levels to this
Mhm.
game, right? So even when you get to different points, because I am gratefully by far nowhere near where I was, but there's more to go, right? There's
Right.
always like a new final boss, like if you play in Street Fighter or something like that. Each level, right, it has that boss,
Yes.
right? It's like that, right? But it has been really the main thing that has shown me how growth looks, how embodiment looks, and especially as it relates to someone else being a mirror to you,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes it's harder to see that mirror when it's something outward, like, me being shy. Like, okay, if I stop being shy, I could talk to people. Wonderful, right? But when there's a reflection, and relationships tend to be like your biggest reflection because that's the person you kind of got literally in your face all the time,
Mhm.
right? Really tells you a lot about who you are, or better yet, who you've been being, right? Because there's not a person that you are, right? We just
Right.
talked about that. There's not a
Yeah.
person that you are. Jim Carrey used to say that, right? Jim Carrey does not exist. It's a character that I chose to play. It is
Right.
that way for all of us, right? But it tells you a lot about who you've been being up to that moment, right? Because that person is always going to reflect back
For
to you,
sure.
right? Kind of like you've heard people say before, like, so why when I was with that person, they was like this.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you figured it out when you would know
Right.
the person, then they are reflecting whoever is standing in front of them.
That's
Right.
true.
And this is what I mean by being a responsible person, and realizing, like, what am I putting into the pot that's creating the soup, right?
Yeah.
That's happening, right? Not as a blame, that's not the same thing, right? But there is a way that I am being that is ushering in the possibility of this being my experience. And I have to be
Yeah.
responsible for that, because otherwise I can't change it, right? And so that this area has been the biggest um reflector of that for me, right? Because now with my experiences, like I tell my friends all the time, like I hear myself saying it, I'm like, because it's true. I was like, if I were me 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't be able to manage this person. I wouldn't be able
Mhm.
to, like I would have a completely different experience with this same type of person, prototype of person,
Right.
right? But I'm different.
Totally get that.
So they're
Totally get
different,
that.
right? And so it helps you. That's where the empowerment comes in. It helps you understand, like, there's not out there, right?
Yeah.
There's only in here, right?
Yeah.
And those people are not doing something to me,
Yeah.
right? They're
They're
just
just
being a
showing you
reflection.
your blind spots.
Exactly. They're
Yeah.
being a reflection of who I'm being to me, right? Because in a lot of instances for me, if I was being the person that I am today, and I've been practicing it, speaking of embodying, I will block you so fast. So, which means you don't even get the chance to be
Yeah,
that with me.
for
'Cause,
sure.
you notice it immediately, like, oh, not that, not you, not me,
Absolutely.
right?
Like,
Where before,
not.
before I would have entertained it and be like, oh, well, they're just like that, or
Girl, that could take the conversation another hour
and not
because
we could
again, it's an element of choice. You know what I'm saying? And I realize that in some of my own situations, it's like, especially when you have a certain heart and you have certain characteristics within you, it's like it's easy for you to see the good in people instead of for who they are. And
Yep,
so now you're responding to who they have the potential to be.
yep, yep.
And you're making choices from that.
Right. Exactly. Right. You're making choices from their potential, but to your point, which is really the most important part that we're focusing on, you're making choices from who you've been being, which in this case is not necessarily bad. And that's why I'm saying to, people listening to this, it is not a blame to take responsibility for how you're, helping create a situation, right?
Right.
It's not bad. It is a great trait. It helps me be an
Yeah.
amazing coach and steward over other people's lives, that I could immediately, assume good intent
Right.
for people, and that can call forth something from them that they may not get from other people because they don't do that, right? It is a great skill, and it can be detrimental in that situation,
For sure.
right?
For
And
sure.
that's what I have learned. That has been
Yeah.
the main learning.
I love the way that you just broke that down because for me, that is the simplest way to explain that, oh, we attract this and we attract that. Because I know a lot of people who have attracted bad experience hate the phrase
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, you're putting the blame on me. It's not blame, it's more responsibility. Because
Mhm.
if you recognized who you were being
Yeah.
and how you were operating in the situation, why people felt like they can come play in your face anyway, like why
Mhm.
you kept giving so many chances. So I totally believe in that whole attracting. It's just the way that you understand it, the way you word it, and I love the way that you broke it down because a lot of people don't truly understand it, and so
Yeah.
that phrase typically pisses them off. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, because if you realize, if you take responsibility and see the choices that you made, like the other day I was reflecting over some relationships, like past relationships that didn't end well. And there was always something in the very beginning, like always something. Literally, I can pinpoint the moment, something they did, something they said, something that I felt early on that I ignored because I wanted to pursue the situation or I thought I could change it or I saw the potential.
Mhm.
That was an active choice. So,
Yeah.
no, I wasn't attracting bad people or whatever, but the way I was being
Mhm.
allowed bad people to see, hey, I can play in her face.
Yeah.
And she's going to continue to make choices that let me play in her. You know what I'm saying? So it's like responsibility. And
Exactly.
I love the way that you broke that down because I hope that helps people get free from that
Mhm.
whole thing. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
seriously.
You're absolutely right. And right, we can even take it a level deeper, right? Because we are in a universal way, in a very quantum woo way, attracting certain experiences to us. We actually are, right? That is a
Yeah.
thing, right? And
And I
in my
believe that, but it's like certain people just you say that and it's like,
it's
ugh.
like, right,
So
right.
yeah.
So let's break that down a little bit, right? Because the fact of the matter is there's two ways sides to this, right? Like the universe is a hodgepodge. God has a way of like intertwine, like a menagerie, right? All things
Mhm.
intertwine and do all the things, right? So it's not necessarily always that I just attracted this person because, I'm being terrible and wrong and don't know what to do. So that's why this person came to me. Not quite. You are going to, cross paths with all manners of energy, right?
Right.
But if you are aligned with that energy,
The
which means,
vibrational match.
right, if you are a vibrational match, meaning I let people, I am unconsciously choosing, because a lot of times it is not conscious,
Yeah.
right? Choosing to allow people to play in my face. Here's said person who likes playing in people's face. That's a perfect match, right?
Exactly.
Right. So while they could have in another world, in another timeline, if you were not being that person, this person would have did this,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
They just wouldn't have been able to be in your orbit long enough for that to happen, right? So not necessarily that you just are, oh my God, I can't stop calling these people. No, but you can stop being a person who lets people play in your face. And
Right.
then,
Making those choices.
right. And you know what's going to happen? Now, this is the part where, but like I said, in my book, I talk a lot about the intersection of the woo manifestation and this part that we're
Yeah.
talking about, which is identity based, right? You will start, once you're real clear on what it takes to be in your aura, you
Hmm.
will start attracting more people that are aligned with that, right? Naturally,
Absolutely.
you are going to attract people that are more in alignment with playing your face, because that's the energy you're giving, but whether you like it or not. Just like you don't necessarily know how gravity works, but you know not to jump off a building because
Right.
it is what it is, right? So
Right.
listen, I tell you straight,
The principle is the principle.
the principle is the principle. You could be mad and you can turn your face up. I don't care. I love you and I don't care. Because, right, speaking of getting free, this is what we need to understand, right? If you don't understand that's the way that your world works, and there is scientific research that proves
Yeah.
that that is exactly the way it works. It is not like something somebody made up and, oh, it's new age and it's all the things. In fact, it's what a lot of the religions are teaching. If you get out of the dogma, they're telling you the same thing, because it's
Right.
the truth of the way that things work. And the faster that you're able to understand that, or just realize it, you don't got to understand it. Just like you know not to
For
jump off
sure.
nothing, but you don't
Yeah.
know quite how gravity works. Is the same thing, right? So yes, I am
For sure.
telling you, you will mostly attract people who are that way because you are that way. It is a vibrational match, period. The moment you
Absolutely.
start elevating from there, and I'm telling you from my experience, I told you we
Yeah.
could do this for another hour about that thing. I'm so serious. And I'm writing a book. It's more like
You write another book?
release that book. So it's been a 15-year book, but it is almost,
Wow.
because you have to go
Nice.
back to those places where it's a thing. But I say that to say, I'm telling you from experience, the people who I bring into my sphere now are nowhere near who I was bringing before. By
I believe you. I believe you because I know once I started doing certain work, even the friendships that I
Mhm.
attracted, like there was a point in my life where I was reading stuff online and people were talking about women friendships and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not experiencing that because those aren't the people I'm attracting. You know what I mean? Like I was not experiencing any of that. So
Mhm.
it's definitely a conscious decision. And when you are in that place of intentional embodiment, you know,
Yep.
walking in your power, understanding the role that self love and accountability and all those things play, you really can create the life that you want and the environment that you want. And you get to.
And you
You
get to.
get to. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us, just like you said before, we don't want to accept responsibility, so we say it's happening to us.
Mhm.
No, it's not. We're experiencing certain things and we get to make choices within that experience.
Right.
So thank you for illuminating that for us. Like, this has been an amazing conversation. If somebody wants to go deeper into your work, because you mentioned the book a few times, so I would love for you to talk about that, but also talk about, any of your events or frameworks or things. Like, where do they start if somebody wants to engage with you deeper?
Well, the first thing that you mentioned when you were introducing me is the Heal Love Manifest framework. So that's the framework that I use because I believe like that is the blueprint or the through line that everyone needs to be able to create the life that they want, right? So, I'm all about manifestation. My doctorate is in
Yeah.
metaphysical science, right? That's just it's the thing. It's my thing, right? And I'm aware, as you can see from this conversation, that it takes more than just, I can teach you how to make the law of attraction work in your life.
Right.
I sure could, right? But it's what I said before. I could teach it to you, and those principles will work as long as you're already a match, like we just said, right?
Yes.
Those things, right? If you're trying to manifest $1 million, but you're already in the vibration and energy of that, or at least close, right? You got to be in proximity, right? It'll be
Yeah.
easier for those things to come into your life. A lot of us are not there, and for a lot of different things, right?
That's another conversation. I got to bring you back.
Another conversation, but we're tracking that to whatever area of life that is, right? Where you're just not that close of a match. And so, there's healing that has to be done first. That's what we've been talking about. Like, how do I shift my mindset? How do I work with ma'am, right?
Yeah.
To help me get different results. Otherwise, she's on auto and I'm just going to keep repeating the same things over and over again, period. Whether you know about manifestation or not, right? That's just what's going to happen, right? So there's healing that has to happen. There is that love or self-love component where you have to figure out, like, then who am I, or who am I going to be, and how do I stand for her? That's what self-love means to me, right? How do I stand for her, right? That lady who I said that I am becoming, I need to stand for her. That happens in my choices, right? That happens in, how I choose to galvanize the experiences that I have. Because you're not going to have all good experiences either, right? But, experiences are experiences. We decide whether they're good or bad, right? It's more, what am I learning from this that will help along the journey of my becoming, right? That's me
Right.
loving myself more, instead of just keep repeating the same thing, trying to figure out why I keep getting that result,
For sure.
right? Then we could talk about manifesting, because once you do those things, that part's easy. Right now, you could apply those other things that we were talking about, and you'll see, it's kind of naturally happening without you even having known those things. You put yourself in vibrational alignment with the things that you say that you want.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for me, that's the way that you do it. Right. That's the order. Right. And people can happen to have the copy right here. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. It is actually a physical thing now. Black Girls Manifest, right? So I talk about the framework a lot in here, right? As well as, like I said, that scientific research that lets you be really clear about the way that the world, the universe really works, right? And then, because when you put those things together, you can't be stopped. That's it, period. Right? So,
and I've seen it.
okay.
I've seen it.
Okay. Listen. So
It's real.
it is 100% real, right? So there's so many ways that, people can be more introduced to this work. One of the ways is through the book, which, you can get that at getblackgirlsmanifest.com, right? There's also our podcast. She manifested that, because you said that earlier, of which you were on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is just to get women in the room with other women who are talking about their manifestation journey. So you could see in kind of real time how those principles were really activated, whether you knew that or not.
Yeah.
Right. And how you manifested something that was important to you in your life and your next step. Right. So it is called She Manifested. That is on Apple. It's on, what else is on? Amazon. It's on YouTube. It's on my YouTube page now. Girl, Get Your Life Together.
Yes. Spotify, all the places.
Spotify, right? all the things, right? So you can find it on there. And you can just join our community at ggylt.com. Side note, that means girl, get your life together, because that's what we're talking about. Girl,
yes, I love it. I love it.
So ggylt.com, and you can be part of our free community, which is Black women who are really on this journey of centering themselves and their journey to manifesting what it is that they want to manifest in their lives.
That's so beautiful. Thank you again. Y'all give it up for Dr. Dré Cleveland. I just thank you so much for even saying yes in the first place and for coming on and just sharing your wealth of knowledge, expertise, and genuine compassion, for the people in the audience and just the work that you do. Like that's it's undeniable. I appreciate it so much. And everybody, if you realize that you've been operating out of survival instead of alignment and you want more information about that, all the links where you can find her book, her podcast, and everything will be in the show notes, description, all of that. So thank y'all so much for tuning in, beautifully dope leaders, and have a wonderful, wonderful experience. Peace and
Yay.
blessings.
Ciao.